Okay, in this video I kind of cleaned up the table a little bit, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at adding the marginal factor cost in and looking at the numbers to make our assessment on whether that is worth it or not. So really we're going to do a really simple marginal analysis and say, is the MRP greater than, less than, or equal to the MFC? So MFC is the wage. It's how much we have to pay. And we talked about how what that looks like. And so if we had a simple graph like this, and let me fix the graph. If we have a simple graph like this, we said that this supply curve is the same as the wage, and that's the marginal factor cost. So it's just kind of constant since we're imperfectly competitive. So in this market, we're going to say that the wage is $500 a week. So we're just going to say we pay $500. So now remember that first worker, 500, second worker, 500, third worker, 500, fourth worker, 500, and so on and so on. So when we calculate marginal factor cost, it just is the wage. It's equal to the wage. The marginal factor cost equals the wage. So when we are putting these in here, we're simply using the wage, which means that we would put 500 for each one of these. So it costs 500 to get the first worker, 500 to get the second worker, 500, 500, 500, 500, 500, and 500. So our simple analysis that we've done from the beginning of the year is, does whatever I'm doing, does it bring me more benefit or more cost? And so now what we're looking at is how much revenue does each worker generate, and we know that that drops as I hire more. And we know that I have to pay each worker the same wage. So if I assess this one at a time, we're going to say this worker right here, worth it. Why is it worth it? Because that worker generates 600, and it costs me $500 to get that 600. So it costs me 500 to get 600. Yes, it's worth it. The next worker, worth it. Why? Because it costs me 500 to get 1,000. So that worker gives me an extra $500 of benefit, more than the cost. So it cost me 500 to get 1,000. So I think we get the hang of it now. So if we look at this one, worth it, 800 better than 500. Worth it, 600 better than 500. This one, not worth it, because 400 is all the revenue that worker generates, but it costs me $500 to get it. So in this context, I would hire 4 workers. So what am I not doing? Well, I'm not hiring where my output is the most. So this one, the output is the most, right? So that goes back to when we did it in the product market, and we said, well, should we maximize our revenue? Well, that's not the point of a firm, is to maximize revenue, it's to maximize profit. And that's the same thing with this. The goal is to maximize profit, not maximize the quantity of output. So the quantity of output is maximized at 180, but that's not my profit maximizing. Profit maximizing is when MRP equals MFC, without the MFC being greater than the MRP. So what we want to do is go back to the idea that we were doing originally, which was trying to show this on a graph. And so in one of our first videos, we had this graph. We had a regular supply and demand for workers. So this is our market for workers. We have wages and quantity of workers. We have an equilibrium wage and an equilibrium quantity. Then what we said is that, well, there are firms in the perfectly competitive that hire those workers. So those firms are wage takers. This is the wage that's set by the market. They take that wage and they have a perfectly elastic supply curve, which is the same as the marginal factor cost for the firm. And now what we're going to try to add to it is this column right here, which is the MRP curve. What we want to do first, before we add the MRP curve, is to make sure we understand how we get the MRP curve and what it looks like graphically. So there's a couple of things that we want to do first, and then we'll come back to those graphs. So the ones that we want to do first are this. So if you have yours, what we want to do is look at what total product does, then what marginal product does, and then what the marginal revenue product does. So if this is our total product and this is our quantity of labor, we've done this a couple of times, right? So we have increasing returns to labor, and then we have diminishing returns to labor, and then we'll actually have negative returns to labor, something like that. So this is our total product line, and that's our max right there. So we have hopefully discovered by now the relationship between the total and the marginal. And what that means is that if total is going up, marginal is positive, right? So if this is increasing at a faster rate, that means our marginal is actually increasing. If this is increasing at a decreasing rate, here, let's look at it like this. Let's do this one in yellow. So this is increasing because this is increasing at an increasing rate. Then this is increasing at a decreasing rate. And so this one is going to be decreasing, right? But it's still positive. These are all positives. So it's going up, but it's just going up by less and less. And then this one, it's negative. So this one is negative. So this yellow line is our marginal product of labor line. And remember, if you go back over and look at the notes that you're taking, marginal product of labor times the price, or the marginal revenue, is going to equal the marginal revenue product. So when you take this line right here, this yellow line, and you take it times a certain number, you're just going to move that line upward, and that becomes the marginal revenue product line. So if we were to graph a marginal revenue product line, you would take your marginal product and you would just move it up. So marginal product of labor looks like that, which this is the quantity of output, and this is the quantity of workers. And so if I take, let's say that's 10, and I take 10, and let's say the price is 10, that means my MRP is 100. So my MRP is, let's call that 100. And the next one, let's say this is at 20, then this would be at 200. And then it would be at, let's say, 400. And then 500, and then 400, 200, 100, 50, 0. And this line, this blue line, is going to be my MRP line. Sometimes you'll just see it downward sloping, MRP, but a lot of times we'll do it like that because of increasing marginal returns and then diminishing marginal returns. So now if we go back and we add our MRP line to this, we will have our whole graph. So we're going to add our MRP line. And remember, our MRP line increases, starts to fall until it hits 0. So this is MRP. So now we can decide how many workers this firm should hire. And so if you've learned anything about micro, it's that you look where they intersect. And that's where the MFC equals the MRP. And we know that that is the profit max number of workers. we also know that those workers are going to produce a certain amount of output. So we know that this is going to be the quantity that is max profit as well. So we analyze it like we always analyze it. This is the extra cost. This is the extra benefit. So it's worth it. Extra cost, extra benefit, worth it. Extra cost, extra benefit, worth it. Stop there, because after that, the extra cost is greater than the extra benefit, so it's not worth it to keep hiring workers. So our quantity of workers is at that point right there.